Good morning, my East Coast starlings. It is the solar eclipse upon us, and it is a very special time in the crescendo of the year. We really are in the midst of it, so to speak. I wanted to come online and do a little bit of cards and a little bit of astrology to just push everyone along and get us through this beautiful transcendent time. There's a lot going on. I highly suggest, if you haven't learned how to read transits, that you start looking into it. Space weather is exactly how this simulation is programmed in the first place. It's the astrology, and yeah, this is the cheat code. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to read a little bit as I talk about the astrology. Currently, yes. So I like to use horoscopes.astro-seek.com. You could also just Google current transits, and you'll have a chart pop up. We're going to do this in Western astrology, just because that is what my channel covers. However, when I do personal astrology, I go much deeper, and we go into the nakshatras and the using the Vedas with sidereal time. So let's get into it. As everybody knows, this eclipse is happening in Gemini. This has been the Gemini season of a lifetime for many of us, and really we're about halfway through. We're at 16 degrees and there's 30 degrees of sign. So tomorrow, when this thing starts to take full, we're in the energies now, but it takes about 3 days for this whole eclipse thing to kind of be completed. And we're at the first day of this. So there is I say the strongest connections in the basic planets is to Saturn, okay? And that's not asteroids included. That's not, I don't have like Chiron or anybody else pulled in, any asteroids or trans-Neptunian planets. When we look at just the classic astrology planets out to Saturn, out to the one we can see with the naked eye, the rings that bring us back around, Saturn is almost in the exact middle of his sign. I mean, he's retrograde right now, so he hasn't actually made it fully to the sign, and he's not actually going that way at this moment. From the way it looks like Saturn's not even moving. If we charted it day to day, astronomy-wise, it does barely looks like it's moving because it's retrograding right now, and it's a slow-moving planet. Being that it is in its own sign, whether we put it sidereally or Vedically, Saturn is in a lot of power right now, okay? And being retrograde, this eclipse is definitely about Saturn in this position. So, tropically, I like to use for Horary astrology, which is like looking at everybody and how the transit's affecting everybody, because I think that works on a more global level. But I will translate a little bit into sidereal as well. So with Saturn being at this exact moment in the East Coast, when I'm charting this at 8:03 a.m., from my Eastern point of view, the easternmost horizon is the rising sign of Cancer, and the sun has just risen and is up. Sorry, over there. It's in the east, and it's just rising in the east. And the moon is actually ahead of it. We can't see the moon except right before the sunrise. You can almost see like moonlight, and then you start to see the sun, because they're so close together already that they're almost working as one together. The moon is a luminary, and being that it's coming into an air sign where the sun is, we're having a connection between what is known and received and reciprocated to what is energized and activated, which is our thoughts, our minds, our conceptions, our ability to breed. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I mean, we're talking about the conception of idea. We're talking about the conception of the ability to know that with the beginning of an idea comes a train of thought, that there is never one single action. There is always a reaction, and the connectivity to the synchronicity of that is really what we're talking about. We're talking about tropical Gemini Sun, especially when we have the moon coming in here for this eclipse. Mercury is in the sign as well, and it's retrograde, as is Saturn. It's a loose enough conjunction that I wouldn't call that a conjunction. Mercury's sitting around 22, and Sun is 17, so you really don't have that, like, I mean, they're not far off. They're within 10 degrees of each other, but it's still loose enough that I wouldn't say this is a Mercury deal. Now, another reason I say that is because if we flip this sidereal, Mercury's almost in Cancer, and it's retrograding. It's not in Cancer, it is in Gemini. But, sorry, in tropically, it's almost in Cancer. But if we look at this sidereally, it's entirely in Gemini. So this tropically and hooray-wise, like as a community, we're gonna feel this being about the birth of idea. It's gonna feel like a new idea. It's going to feel like a new idea, but it's actually an application of a concept that would have happened eventually anyway. And I say that because we have an eclipse here. We have a fated event here aligning. So yeah, I apologize there for getting confused about the sidereal, tropical. I do try to switch back and forth, and we are talking about Mercury retrograde here, so confusion is part of the process. The moon is also with Uranus at the exact moment that I'm recording this, so I'm getting tripped up a little bit myself. So also Uranus, we got to bring him in. So there is a square that's very strong and generational effect kind of thing. Happens 3 times during this year between Uranus and Saturn. I think it's actually over the course of 18 months. I could be corrected, but it's a long transit. They square, which means they have a 90-degree angle, and then they retrograde, then they move forward, then they square. You know what I mean? And that happens 3 times. And I believe we're in the first of these, you know, itchy energies, and this isn't going to go away. And because Uranus and Saturn are in this square together, it's this, again, Saturn in its health, in its happiness, in Saturn territory stars of Aquarius in retrograde, even in Capricorn if we want to put it that way. We have a very powerful Saturn ready to write down new rules, ready to instill new rules, ready to put foundations down, ready to, like, I just see those huge support beams. And I'm reminded of this time where I was learning carpentry, outdoor carpentry. We were building structures outside in a very muddy marshland area, and I learned about the reinforcements that it takes to be able to put a building up in sloppy, movable land. How deep into the ground you have to go, how much concrete, how much wood, how much metal is unseen just in the support of this thing that's above. And that's very Saturn energy. Like you won't always know the structures that are ongoing. But with this Saturn-Uranus square, this is the force of doing it different, right? Like Uranus in Taurus has been ripping up the historical Mother Nature isolation, the wrongs. Because to me, personally, and I study Uranus very strongly, Uranus represents God truth. It's God's message. It's God's word. It's God. It's divine truth. It's divine Saturn. Saturn's not divine. Saturn has a material side to it. Okay, it's an interior planet. We can see it. It's not divine. It is not beyond our sight. Uranus is the first planet of divine knowledge, divine information. And when we add Saturn in retrograde, in his, in tropically in Aquarius, you know, in the innovative sign of revolution and change and forward thinking, the visionary, we get that visionary energy coming from Uranus in Taurus, reminding us that no, we are on a material plane, we're on a physical thing, and we need to grow with it. We need to bring that Mother Nature and invoke her divinity, hear her divinity. Uranus and Taurus, the whole transit, I've been watching this whole thing for a few years now, very closely. There's a real tie to the Uranus and Taurus transit to Aboriginal people getting their getting heard, being seen, being recognized, and things really being changed on a societal level. I'll make note of that more if anybody's interested in that. Okay, so again, this really new concept, new ideas, old. I honestly want to say this is like, this is the time that if you ever said, I just wish the world was blah, 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 this is the time for you will literally have the opportunity given to you, and what you do with it will be up to you. But you will have new tools and old understandings to work with. You'll have all of these opportunities to really change and really heal and really work on this self-limiting perception. Like, we know it's a simulation. So once you know, you have the power to control, okay? Let's go a little deeper here. Jupiter at 1 degree, Pisces. I'm a big fan. I'm a Pisces, so I'm a big fan that Jupiter's here tropically. And obviously we're about 7 degrees Vedically in Aquarius for Jupiter. Either way, Jupiter is making squares to the nodes here. It is loose. It's about 10 degrees, but 8 degrees, 9 degrees, but it's Jupiter. Okay, so if Jupiter wants to square the nodes, that's fine. And he's doing this more as the moon moves through. So the moon will make a square to Jupiter right before it hits the eclipse. So there is this, like, it's not, I want to say that this isn't a skipped step situation. And a lot of astrologers like to use that term when we're talking about pardon me, when we're talking about the squares to the nodes. And I mean, this sort of is, I would even say that Jupiter in next summer is going to square the nodes, and it'll be a much bigger deal. But for now, this Jupiter has more strength from Venus. There's a big trine from Venus in Cancer to Jupiter in Pisces, and we have this well-wishing and spiritual washover of emotional resolve, security, heightened psychic senses. We're talking about a lot of water power here. We're talking about Jupiter, who loves being in Pisces, like this is his home stars, tropically, to Mars, or sorry, Venus, who's in Cancer, who is, and I've said this before, in my personal opinion, Venus is like in her exaltation in Cancer, in any water sign. She just does well. And with very psychic, very sensitive Cancer, Venus being here will give us the ability to be hypersensitive to our surroundings, to our other people, to ourselves, to our psychic needs. That means you can do with that what you want. Just remember psychosomatic issues as well, right? When we have Venus and Jupiter start working together, you can literally, especially if Mercury is involved, and Mercury's involved here because this is a Gemini eclipse, you can make yourself sick with your own thoughts. We do put negative images in our mind and feel negative in our physical selves. So there's a relation to that, and I think that concept is coming out for a lot of people as well. Pluto is actually in the biggest connection here to Mercury. This is my most excited part about this, as far as I'm concerned. Mars is involved as well, and Mars is like the lower octave of Pluto as far as I'm concerned. But that Pluto Neptune thing is happening, but the square from Mercury to, every time I talk about it, I like stutter. Mercury to Neptune is doing exactly what it's doing there. Just where I wasn't even able to describe the words, like I'm looking at it and then it changed on me and then it changed on me. That's Mercury square Neptune, okay? We're supposed to feel like the cognitive flow of thought is supposed to be stuttered right now. We're supposed to slow down, re-examine our thought, let it play around in our imagination more, and then speak. I should have prepared that more. I think I'm going to leave that there. Let's do some cards for this eclipse, and then I will cut this off and check my phone and see which one of my beautiful sterlings is messaging me. I'm so proud and happy to be your astrologer. I'm so happy to be able to translate this information, and I promise you eventually, one day, hopefully in my lifetime, but definitely one day, there will be, this will be on the news. Like, everybody will be watching astrology with their morning coffee. Okay, so the cards we got: Void of Course Moon reversed, 6th house reversed, Fire element upright, and Virgo reversed again. Like, you couldn't even, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We are checking the stoppage. Okay, when I get the Void of Course Moon, this missing moon, which means it's a moon with no aspects, a planet who's out of bounds, you get this energy of not touchable, like things that just have to be left alone for a while. But when this card comes up reversed, it's go time. Okay, it's go time. The wait is over. It's go time. The moment of holding in and waiting for thought to develop is done. And I say thought because the 6th house is here. Okay, this is the Virgo house. But also look to your 6th house for extra insight as to what this eclipse may mean for you. The 6th house reversed, we are changing and undoing routines. We're undoing the regular day-to-day understanding of reality. And we're gonna burn it up with desire. We're gonna bring new passion and new fury and new young, youthful life in. Out with the old ways and patterns. Out with the old, unhealthy mental mechanisms, and walk into your provoking new desire. All right, guys, I can't stand the sound of my own voice anymore this morning. I love you so much. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day.